Man, I had a great vacation. I'm ready to get back to this. No, I'm not. I just want to go sleep. Because there's my wife. She's coughing. I hope she's okay. Boy, my wife is awesome. She is a trooper. Man, she drove most of our road trip. I cannot tell you how thankful I am to her for that because I would have been so tired. She just loves to drive. I don't know what it is. I tried to drive. She wouldn't let me. That was very nice of her. We had an awesome time. Went to, yeah, it's a surprise. I'll link the videos when they come out. So you'll have to wait for them. All right, so let's get started. Hey, this is your first time joining. Welcome to the Coding Zoo. My name is Shane, and this is our JavaScript building blocks playlist. This is lesson number 20, I believe. And we are going to cover how to use the operation reduce and reduce right in an array. In the previous lessons, we covered how to do a map, how to do a filter, and other array methods. In this lesson, we're going to cover reduce and reduce right. So if that interests you, hey, stick around. We're going to jump right into it. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed yet and you'd like to learn how to program, that's what our goal is at the Coding Zoo, is to teach others how to program. So we look forward to helping as many people as we can. We hope these videos are helpful to you. Click subscribe below and click the like button if you like the video. Let's jump in. All right, let's get started. I have on my desktop Notepad++. Feel free to use whatever editor you like. I do recommend that you code what I code. Stop the video and catch up when you need to. Code what I code. That way it gets stuck in your head. In my Notepad++, I have an index file. That index file, as usual, links to a main.js file and a CSS file. I've got a main.js file. Usually this is blank. In this lesson, I went ahead and copied some of the code or similar code to what was in the previous lessons in lesson 18 and 19. Just wanted to go over that with you real quick to remind you, and then we'll jump into reduce and reduce right. In lesson 18, one of the methods we covered was how to filter an array. Now, if you remember, you start out with an array, and you can call the filter method on that array, passing in a function. It can be an anonymous function, it can be any type of function. Here I'm using ES6 arrow function. It's an anonymous function. So this array.filter or number array.filter takes each item in the array, passes it to this function. Each item is called entry. I named it that. You can name it whatever you want. And if the entry is less than 50, it returns true or false. So you're basically telling the filter method, this meets the criteria I specified. If it meets the criteria you specified, each item in the array, or whatever items in the array that are met, or whatever items in the array that meet the criteria, those items will be returned to you in a new array. So it's a way of filtering out items from your original array to create a new array. This could be an array of objects, array of strings, array of numbers. It can be used in many different ways. And your filter, your criteria filtering something could be on the object properties. It doesn't have to be a primitive like data structure. So it can be very powerful. Very simple stuff. It filters out your data, takes an array, creates a new array with filtered data. The next one we learned was in lesson 19. Lesson 19, again, we have an array, and we learned how to take the data in a given array and map it to a new array. And as we map it, we're actually transforming it. We're performing an operation on it. That operation can be anything. In this case, I happen to be taking the entry, and I'm adding a 3.5% tax to these item prices. Item prices dot map each entry. I take that entry, I add that entry to the entry times 0.035, which would be 3.5% tax. So this should give me the item cost plus the tax. And then that entry is returned automatically. The map function collects it, puts it into a new array, and it does this for each item. So I end up with a list or an array of items that are having a tax applied to it. So I actually perform some rules against the data, creating a new array. I map the data to a new data set by performing rules against it, business rules. All right, so I'm going to run this real quick just so you can see the output. So I have numbers less than 50. So this is the filter. And these items are less than 50. If you remember from looking at the code, I said the entry is less than 50. And here are my items. And we ran it, it found the items less than 50. Now, if you go back and look at the map, I applied this logic to each item, entry plus the 3.5%. And the outcome is 5.175, 6.21, 8.28, and so forth. If you look at this, we started out with 5 and 6, 8, 12, and 14. So it added this tax onto it. So that gives you an idea of how you could use map or filter. These are very powerful functions, and you will probably use them often. Now let's jump into reduce. So what does reduce does? Well, reduce takes an array and reduces it down to something else, an array of objects, array of data, and reduces it down to something else. I'm defining something with the same word that I'm defining. That's not very helpful. So, hey, let me write some code. Let's show you how it works. Okay, so imagine if I had an array of cost. So constant cost equals, and let's do 1.50 comma 100 comma let's do 0.40 comma 2 comma 3. All right, so I have an array of cost. Now imagine I want to loop through that, and these are like item costs. Let's assume these are item costs. So imagine I want to loop through that and print out the total. Well, I could do that using a for each loop. I could do this. Let total cost equals 0, cost dot for each. Create a arrow function that takes the total cost, adds it together with cost, and that was what will be returned from the anonymous function. And at the end of running that, my total cost should have all those added up together. Let's write it out using the DOM object. And let's run it. Almost left a bug in. Let's run it. There we go. Total cost using for each. So I was able to use for each and loop through the array and reduce that array down to a total cost. Well, reduce. I think there's an easier way to do this. Let's use reduce. All right. So I'm going to comment this out. Comment that out. And let's do constant total cost equals cost reduce total comma cost. Again, I'm going to use the arrow function total plus cost. There we go. So I believe this will do it. That one line of code should produce this total cost constant. What's up, Nicholas? What are you doing? He's over there YouTubing or playing games. All right, he's got to do his JavaScript lesson later. We're behind because we've been on vacation. All right, so I have constant total cost equals cost.reduce. Reduce takes in an anonymous function just like array filter and array map. The first parameter is what was returned from the previous time the function was called. And the second parameter is one of the items in the array, or the next item in the array. So I'm taking what was returned from the previous time the function was called. In this case, the first time would be 0, nothing, it's empty. And I am adding in the entry cost. So the first time it goes through there, it should equal 150. And then the next entry in the array, when it's passed into the anonymous function, the total at that point will be 150. And of course, the second entry is 100.40. So that's what the cost will be. We'll add those two together. And then, of course, your total changes for the next entry in the array. So it's looping through the array, calling that function, and that function business logic is being applied to each entry in the array till I end up having one total cost. Let's see if I get similar results. I'm going to change that to using reduce. Click save, click refresh, and there we go. Total cost using reduce 106.9, same as before. So that's it. It's that simple. That's how you use reduce. It helps you keep track of a value that's returned from each time you apply the function. You can use that value along with each entry to reduce everything down to something else. So that's a simple way of using reduce. There are other ways you can use it. For example, a more complex way could be, I want to turn this array into a map, something like that. Perhaps if this array had objects that had multiple properties, and I use one of those properties as a key to the map and one of those properties as a value to the map, well, the variable I pass in, like total, could be a map, and I could be adding properties onto that map and values to those properties using reduce. So there are more advanced ways to use reduce. It's not always about just working with primitives and returning a single value in a primitive. It could be used with objects in more complex ways. In the future, we're going to cover the ES6 maps in upcoming lessons. In that lesson, I'll probably show you how to use reduce to create a map, and then I'll show you how to use ES6 to create a map. So stick around if you want to see that upcoming video. Hit subscribe and click that bell. We'll get to it. Let's go ahead and move on to reduce right. I'm going to cut and paste this code here. And I'm going to change it up just a little bit. I'm going to move, I'm going to get rid of that value. And I'm going to change this to minus. Okay. All right, so I basically changed this code up a little bit to I basically changed this code up to have a list of numbers. I'm going to use reduce to subtract those numbers from each other. So what we should have is 100.40 minus 2 minus 3. Let's save it. Let's click refresh. Hopefully there's no bugs. And there we go. So minus using reduce. So that was 95.4 is the answer. So yeah, 100 basically minus 5. So yeah, that's correct. I use this reduce to reduce these numbers down to a single number by subtracting one from another. Now let's look at reduce right. What do you think right will do? Let's save, refresh. So it ended up being a negative 99.4. Well, why is that? Well, reduce starts with the left side of the array, here rather, and reduce right starts with the right side of the array. With the end of the array, reduce starts with the beginning of the array. Reduce right started out with 3, subtracted 2, and then subtracted 100.40. It's pretty much self-explanatory. Reduce right starts at the right side, the end of the array. Reduce starts at the left. Same features as reduce, just starts on a different side of the array. Pretty simple. All right, so cool. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave a message below. Tell me what you think about reduce right. Do you think it'll use it heavily? I know we have at times. It's a very powerful feature, just like map and filter. I'd love to hear what you think. Leave me a message below. Again, thanks for joining. I hope the video was helpful. If so, subscribe or click the like button, and hope to see you again soon. Have a good one.